Vivid verses.
We were coming back from the dinner at the Miller's place. The timing was unfortunate. I was late getting home to pick her up. Not forgot the time late or having a drink late, but closing the quarterly acquisition so we can pay the mortgage late. I had texted her twice with ETA updates. She read them. The receipts were there. She knew the stakes. But by the time I sat in the passenger seat, the timeline didn't matter. The narrative did. In her narrative, I wasn't working to secure our future. I was ignoring her to spite her. Layla drives a calibrated machine, an Audi Q5 with the Sport package. It has decent handling and a Quattro all-wheel drive system, but she was treating it like a blunt instrument. We hit the on-ramp to I-95, and she floored it. The transmission kicked down 2 gears, the engine whining, high-pitched, and straining near the red line. She wasn't trying to get us home faster. She was trying to spike my cortisol. She knows I hate uncontrolled variables. Speeding in moderate traffic is an uncontrolled variable. I checked my phone. I had a 7 a.m. briefing with the APAC team regarding the Singapore compliance issues. I needed to review the PDF files sent by legal. I scrolled through the document, highlighting a clause on liability caps. That was the trigger, the silence. The fact that I was prioritizing the reality of our livelihood over the theater of her anger. She jerked the wheel hard to the left, changing lanes without a signal, cutting off a semi-truck. The horn blast from the truck was loud enough to vibrate the passenger window glass against my temple. She didn't flinch. She wanted me to flinch. She wanted me to grab the dashboard so she could mock my fear. I didn't move. I looked at the speedometer. 94 now. The suspension was tight, but at that speed, physics takes over. A patch of oil, a deer, or a blown tire creates a fatal event. The kinetic energy involved doesn't care about who wins the argument. "Look at you," she shouted. She reached over and turned the volume up on the stereo. It was some heavy bass track, something repetitive. She cranked it until the speakers distorted, forcing her to scream over the noise to be heard. Just sitting there like a dead fish. "Do you even care that you embarrass me? Scream at me. Tell me to stop driving. Do something to show you actually have a pulse." I adjusted my seatbelt. I pulled the strap tight across my chest and locked the mechanism. I looked at the side mirror. The truck was flashing its high beams at us. "I'm not going to compete with you for who can be the most hysterical, Layla," I said. I kept my voice flat, pitching it under the bass line so she would have to strain to hear it. "Drive safely, or pull over." She didn't pull over. She hit the steering wheel with the palms of her hands, hard, rhythmic thuds that shook the column. She wanted the fight. She needed the dopamine hit of a screaming match to validate the chemicals dumping into her system. It's a cycle. Stimulus, reaction, explosion, relief. When I didn't give her the explosion, she was denied the relief. So she accelerated again. We survived the drive. That wasn't a given, but we made it. She pulled into the driveway and slammed the brakes so hard the ABS chatter kicked in on the dry pavement, the tires chirping as the caliper pistons seized. Before the engine cycled down, she was out of the car. The door slam shook the frame. I sat there for 30 seconds in the dark. I finished reading the paragraph on indemnity in the contract. I checked the house security feed on my phone to make sure the alarm was disarmed so I wouldn't trigger it entering. Then I grabbed my laptop bag. When I walked in, the house was quiet. Too quiet. The air felt pressurized. That usually means she's gathering ammunition or setting the stage. I went to the kitchen. I needed water. Hydration is the first thing you forget in a crisis, and a headache the next morning wasn't on my schedule. I opened the cabinet, took out a glass, and went to the fridge. The kitchen connects to the living room through a pass-through archway. The acoustics in our house are terrible. The hardwood carries sound like a conduit. She was on the phone. "You just sat there, Mom." "It's pathetic." I stopped at the fridge. I didn't pour the water. I listened. This wasn't venting. Venting is private. Venting is releasing pressure. This was triangulation. She was bringing a third party into the dynamic to validate her position and permanently alter the perception of mine. She was building a coalition. He has absolutely no backbone, she said. Her voice was pacing, the volume rising and falling as she moved back and forth across the rug. I need a man who can handle me, not this weak, passive-aggressive robot. I honestly feel like doing something crazy just to see if he wakes up. Maybe I should call Mark. That would get a reaction. Mark, her ex, the one she keeps in orbit for situations exactly like this. A pivot point. I stood there, looking at the stainless steel of the refrigerator. I saw my reflection. Suit jacket wrinkled, tie loosened, eyes tired but clear. Here is the breakdown of what I heard, stripped of the emotional noise. Disrespect. She frames my emotional control/professionalism as a defect, robot. Incompatibility. She defines a man as someone who engages in emotional violence. Handle me. Threat. She is leveraging infidelity as a tool for attention. In contract law, we call this a material breach. When one party demonstrates bad faith and fundamental incompatibility with the terms of the agreement, the contract is voidable. You do not continue to pour capital into a venture that is actively sabotaging its own infrastructure. I didn't feel angry. That's the thing people don't understand about these situations. Anger implies you think the other person can be changed, that if you just yell loud enough, they'll see reason. I didn't feel that. I felt the clarity of a solve. The equation had shifted. The energy required to maintain the relationship now exceeded the potential future yield by a factor of 10. I walked past the kitchen island and into the hallway. My laptop bag was still on my shoulder. I didn't go upstairs. I didn't need clothes. I have a go bag in the hall closet, gym gear, toiletries, a spare drive with essential documents, a backup charger. I keep it there for sudden business travel, but the utility is universal. I opened the closet, took the duffel, and slung it over my other shoulder. I walked into the living room. Layla was by the fireplace, phone pressed to her ear. She saw me. She froze. The performance halted. She lowered the phone, but she didn't hang up. She wanted her mother to hear the next part, assuming I was going to explode. She wanted the recording of my breakdown to play to the jury. I was just blowing off steam, she said. Her tone shifted instantly. The aggression evaporated, replaced by a defensive, almost playful lilt. It was gaslighting, live and in real time. She was rewriting the reality she had just established 5 seconds ago. I looked at her. I didn't see my wife. I saw a liability. I saw a safety risk. I heard you, I said. She rolled her eyes. Oh my God, don't be dramatic. Put the bag down and fight with me like a normal person. You're being ridiculous. You believe that emotional regulation is weakness, I said. I didn't raise my voice. I spoke to her the way I speak to a board of directors when the numbers are bad. Facts only. You believe a backbone consists of screaming matches. You want a fighter. I want a partner. She laughed. It was a nervous sound, sharp and brittle. She took a step toward me, assuming physical proximity would reset the dynamic. She reached for my arm. Henry, seriously. Stop. You're scaring me. We have a fundamental incompatibility, I said. I stepped back, avoiding her touch. You're leaving? She scoffed. Because I vented to my mom? That is so typical. You run away the second things get real. Things aren't real for you, Layla. They're fuel. I checked my watch. 9:15 p.m. If I left now, I could be at the downtown Marriott by 9:45. I could get 3 hours of work done and sleep by 1 o'clock. The logistics were already mapping out in my head. I don't fight for entertainment, I said. My voice was low, final, and I don't stay where I am not respected. You are free to find the chaos you're looking for. I didn't wait for a rebuttal. A rebuttal is an invitation to negotiate. I wasn't negotiating. I was executing an exit strategy. I walked past her. She reached out again, maybe to grab my bag, maybe to block me, but she stopped. I think she sensed the absolute lack of hesitation in my stride. There was no wavering, no looking back to see if she was crying. I opened the front door. I stepped out into the night air. It was cold. It felt clean. Behind me, I heard her stammer something, a question or a curse, but I didn't catch the words. I closed the door. I didn't slam it. Slamming indicates loss of control. I turned the handle, engaged the latch, and let click shut. The silence on the front porch was heavy. Not the tension silence of the car, but the silence of a vacuum. I walked to the car. I didn't take the Audi. I have a sedan, a company lease, parked on the street. I unlocked it through the bags in the passenger seat and got in. As I started the engine, I looked at the house. The living room curtains were open. I could see her standing there, phone in hand, looking at the door. She wasn't moving. She was waiting for the turn, the moment I'd realize I was wrong and come back to beg for forgiveness. She was waiting for the cycle to restart. She didn't realize the cycle had been broken. I put the car in drive and pulled away from the curb. I drove the speed limit. I used my turn signals. I didn't turn on the radio. I needed the quiet to process the tactical shift. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Then again, then a sustained vibration, a call. I let it ring. At the first red light, I picked up the phone. I didn't answer. I went to the settings and turned off notifications for her contact. Then I opened the banking app. I transferred the balance of our joint savings, the liquidity I had contributed for the upcoming renovation project, into my primary checking account. This wasn't theft, it was asset protection. I left enough for the mortgage payment and the utilities for the month. I'm not malicious. I'm just securing the perimeter. If she decided to do something crazy like she threatened, I wasn't going to let her do it with my capital. I arrived at the hotel at 9:50. The lobby was quiet. The check-in process was efficient. The concierge, a man named David, knew me from business stays. He didn't ask about the lack of luggage or the late hour. He just verified the card and handed me the key. Room 412. I walked in, locked the deadbolt, and dropped the bags. I sat on the edge of the bed and exhaled. The silence here was different. It wasn't empty. It was yours. It was controlled. I opened my laptop. I had a briefing at 7 a.m. The phone buzzed again. A text from her. I didn't read it, but the preview flashed on the screen. Where are you? Stop playing games. I deleted the thread. You asked me how I felt? I didn't feel sad. Sadness comes later, when you mourn the potential of what you thought you had. In that moment, I felt the way you feel when you finally locate the source of a noise in the engine that's been driving you crazy for months, and you realize the part is broken beyond repair. You don't cry over a broken piston. You replace it, or you get a new car. I order a club sandwich from room service. I open the compliance file. I gotta work. The next morning, the reality set in. Not the emotional reality, the logistical one. I woke up at 6 a.m. I felt rested. That was the first indicator that I had made the correct decision. Usually, after a fight with Layla, I sleep in fragmented 40-minute bursts, anticipating the 3 a.m. wake up and discuss this raid. That didn't happen. The hotel room was a bunker. I showered, shaved with the disposable razor from the gym bag, and put on the spare shirt I keep for travel. It was slightly wrinkled, but acceptable for a video call. The 7 a.m. briefing went well. My focus was absolute. We identified 3 exposure points in the APAC deal and drafted mitigation clauses. By 8:30, I was drinking my second coffee and looking at the city skyline. Then the phone call started. Not Layla, her mother. I watched the name scroll across the screen. Barbara, mother-in-law. Layla had deployed the reserve troops. The escalation matrix was proceeding exactly as predicted. When direct confrontation fails, She moves to proxy warfare. I didn't answer. I let it go to voicemail. Then came the text. Henry, Layla is beside herself. She says you walked out? This is incredibly immature. You need to call her immediately and apologize for abandoning her. Abandoning. Interesting word choice. It implies a duty of care that exists regardless of the behavior of the protected party. It frames me as a parent and her as a dependent child. It confirmed my diagnosis. I replied once to Layla via email. I want a paper trail. Text messages are volatile and can be deleted or edited in screenshots. Email is evidence. It has timestamps and headers. Subject: current status / logistics. Layla, I am staying at the Marriott downtown. I will be here for the immediate future. I have transferred my portion of the renovation funds to my personal account to secure them. The bills for the house are covered for the next 30 days. I'm not playing games. I meant what I said last night. The dynamic in our marriage is unsustainable and detrimental to my well-being. I am taking this time to evaluate the next steps. Please do not come to the hotel. If you need to discuss logistics, email me. Henry. I hit send. I knew what would happen next. The chaos as love model relies on escalation. If the target withdraws, the aggressor must increase the amplitude of the signal to re-establish connection. They view silence as an act of aggression that must be met with force. By noon, she showed up at my office. I work in a secure building in the financial district. Keycard access for the elevators. Reception in a lobby calls up before sending anyone. Henry, the receptionist said. She sounded uncomfortable. Your wife is here. She seems upset. Is she creating a disturbance? She's crying, Henry. She's raising her voice a bit. People are looking. This is the trap. The public scene. It forces you to come down and manage the situation to save face, which brings you back into the dynamic. It weaponizes your own professionalism against you. Tell security to escort her out, I said. There was a pause. Henry, are you sure? It's your wife. I am in a meeting. If she refuses to leave, call the police. Do not send her up. I hung up. My hands were shaking slightly. Not from fear, from adrenaline. It goes against every instinct of social preservation to treat your spouse like a security threat. But she wasn't acting like a spouse. She was acting like a hostile entity using social norms as a bludgeon. 10 minutes later, I got a text from the reception desk. She left. I didn't go down for lunch. I worked through. I contacted a lawyer on day 3. A friend named Miller. High billable hours, no nonsense. I sat in his office, which smelled of mahogany and old paper. Described the conflict, he said, pen hovering over a yellow legal pad. High volatility, emotional deregulation, pattern of triangulation. No physical violence, but psychological intimidation and reckless endangerment with a vehicle. Assets. House is joint. Investments are segregated, mostly. No kids. Okay, Miller said. We file for separation. We get a temporary order on the assets. Expect her to burn the house down, metaphorically. She might do it literally, I said. Then ensure your insurance is up to date. I went to the apartment listing sites. I needed a lease. The hotel was bleeding money. I found a furnished one-bedroom in the financial district. Sterile, modern, secure. It looked like a dentist's waiting room. Gray furniture, white walls, abstract art, but it was quiet. I moved in on Friday. That weekend, I needed to retrieve the rest of my things. I couldn't go alone. Going alone meant opening the door to a she said incident. If she scratched herself and called the police, I would be the one in handcuffs. The system defaults to protecting the female in domestic disputes. I know the statistics. I called a non-emergency line and requested a civil standby. This is a service most people don't utilize. An officer meets you at the residence to ensure the peace is kept while you retrieve property. It turns a domestic drama into a bureaucratic procedure. I met the officer a block away. Officer Hernandez. He was young, bored, and chewing gum. "Just grabbing clothes and gear?" he asked. "Yes. And some books. Any weapons in the house?" "No." "All right. Let's get it done. You have 15 minutes. We pulled up. Layla's car was in the drive. Barbara's car was behind it. They were fortified. I unlocked the door. Officer Hernandez stepped in first. Layla was on the couch. Barbara was standing by the kitchen island, arms crossed. When they saw the uniform, the dynamic collapsed. The screaming match they had prepared died in their throats. The presence of state authority forced the regulation she claimed she couldn't master. She sat on the sofa, staring at the wall. She wouldn't look at me. "You're pathetic," she whispered as I walked past with my suits. "Bringing a cop? You're such a coward." I didn't stop packing. I moved efficiently. Suits in the garment bag. Shoes in the duffel. I'm risk-averse, Layla. There's a difference. I went to the study. I boxed up my reference books. I took the espresso machine from the kitchen counter. I bought it, and I had the receipt scanned in my drive if she wanted to contest it. As I was walking out the door for the last time, Barbara stepped forward. She blocked the hallway. "You are making a huge mistake, Henry. She loves you. She's just passionate. You're throwing away a marriage because you can't handle a strong woman." I stopped. The heavy box of books was cutting into my fingers. The officer was watching from the doorway, hand hooked in his vest. "Barbara," I said, "passion is enthusiasm for a shared interest. Screaming at someone while driving 90 miles an hour is endangerment. You've taught her that abuse is a language of love. I'm declining to learn it." "She's your wife," Barbara spat. "Not anymore. Now she's a litigant." I walked around her. The officer held the door for me. I walked out. The divorce process was a war of attrition. She fired her first lawyer because he told her she wouldn't get alimony given the short duration of the marriage and our comparable incomes. She hired a second one who promised her the moon. They sent over a discovery request that was absurdly broad. They wanted 5 years of credit card statements, business emails, travel logs. They were looking for the affair they were convinced I was having. They couldn't conceive that a man would leave simply because he was unhappy. There had to be another woman. There wasn't. I spent nights in my gray apartment scanning documents. I provided everything. I drowned them in paper. I gave them every receipt, every transfer. Transparency is the best defense against conspiracy theories. We went to mediation 2 months in. We sat in a conference room with a long oval table. She was on one side, I was on the other. She looked tired. She wasn't wearing her wedding ring. She wore a dress I hadn't seen before. The mediator, a retired judge, tried to find common ground. "Layla is requesting spousal support for emotional distress," her lawyer said. My lawyer, Miller, didn't even look up from his notes. "Denied. Emotional distress is not a tort applicable here, and in this state, we are in no-fault jurisdiction. However, if you want to discuss conduct, we can play the dashcam footage from the night of the separation. We can discuss the reckless driving." I didn't have dashcam footage, but Layla didn't know that. She went pale. She remembered the speed. She remembered the truck. I don't want to watch that," she said quietly. "Then we dropped the spousal support claim," Miller said. She nodded. Her lawyer looked furious, but she waved him off. She just wanted it to be over. Or maybe, for the first time, she realized that actions have permanent records. We signed a settlement 3 hours later. We sold the house. We split the equity 50/50ths. I kept my retirement. She kept hers. As we were leaving the building, she caught me at the elevator. "Henry," she said. I turned. I kept my hand on the door sensor to keep it open, but I didn't step out. "Was it really that bad?" she asked. Her voice was small. "The driving? The fighting? Was it really worth losing all of this?" She gestured to the space between us. I looked at her. I analyzed the question. She was asking if the cost of the exit was higher than the cost of staying. Layla, I said, I spent 3 years walking on a minefield. I never knew when I was going to lose a leg. Now I walk on pavement. It's boring, but I keep my legs. You're cold, she said. You're so cold. I'm stable, I said. Goodbye. The door's closed. It's been 6 months since the signature. The narrative she spins is that I had a breakdown, that I was cheating, projection, that I was cold and unfeeling and abandoned her in her time of need. She posts vague quotes on social media about narcissistic abuse and surviving silence. I lost some friends, the ones who thrive on drama, the ones who think relationships are supposed to be stormy. They took her side. They drink wine with her and talk about how I was an emotional void. I'm okay with that. The shedding of redundant social connections is just another form of efficiency. I have my apartment. I have my schedule. I sleep 7 hours a night. My blood pressure is down 10 points. I met someone recently, a colleague named Sarah. We went for dinner last week. The restaurant was busy. The service was slow. The food, when it arrived, was cold. I watched Sarah. I waited for the reaction. I waited for the huff, the eye roll, the snap at the waiter. She just looked at the plate, then at me, and smiled. Well, she said, I guess we're not tipping 20%. Want to just pay for the drinks and grab a burger on the way home. I looked at her. My pulse didn't spike. My stomach did not. I didn't have to calculate a de-escalation strategy. Yeah, I said. I'd like that. We walked to the burger place. We talked about work. We talked about interest rates. It wasn't exciting. It wasn't a rush. There was no adrenaline. It was peaceful. And that, my friend, is the only metric that matters.
Thanks for listening.